Okay, so today we're going to do a brief overview of the integumentary system. We talked about it just a little bit before when we just did an overview of the systems. You should be hitting this in lecture very soon, if not already. So you'll go into much more detail of the integumentary system. You'll go much more deeper into the skin and maybe a little bit on the hairs and nails, but those all make up the integumentary system. And we've been talking about tissue. So your skin is top layer, epithelial tissue. Remember, epithelial is a lining tissue, and always underneath epithelial tissue is some sort of connective tissue. So we're going to see three different types of connective tissue that is in your skin, and then down below that you would start to see the muscle. So I'd like you to know that some of the characteristics or the functions, I guess would be the better way to say it, of the skin is for protection. It's going to protect you from water loss. It's also going to protect things from getting inside you, and you'll go into lecture about some of the immune cells that you've got, some phagocytes that are inside your skin that helps you protect a little bit more. It produces vitamin D. That was a bonus question on practical number 1. Your integumentary system produces vitamin D, which then would be used by your bones. Again, lecture, you'll learn about something called rickets when you have a lack of vitamin D, lack of that sunlight. Thermoregulators, if you get too hot, you're going to sweat. You get too cold, you're going to see those goosebumps appear, etc. And then you've got sensory, of course. You've got sensory cells on your skin that are going to help you determine if something's crawling on you or something of that nature. So what we're really going to do is label the different layers of your skin, and we're going to talk about the different tissue, and then we're going to look at the model that you're going to see on your practical. All right, let me go on. So your skin is primarily made of two main layers. The two main layers are the epidermis. Epidermis is your top layer of skin. Like when you were in middle school, they might have said, hey, your epidermis is showing. Of course, that just means your skin's showing. Of course, I'm old, and those were kind of jokes we did back in the day. Underneath the epidermis is your dermis. And so this little picture that I have here is on your things to study. So if you want to stop this video and print that off, or you can, make a sketch for yourself, whatever you want. This is going to be just for studying purposes. So we're going to label. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to label in, I guess I'm going to label your types of layers in purple here. So your two main types of layers. So this very top layer right here where this papilla is going, so all the way to the top down, and you'll learn again in your lecture all the great stuff that's going on. There are actually 5 sub-layers in this layer, but we're just labeling this layer here. And so this is the epidermis. And then these two together, both of these together, are your dermis. And so I'm going to put here, and hopefully you can read. This is saying dermis. I may be going off the video. So this is dermis is what I wrote, but it might have went off the video. Here, I'm going to do them here. These two together are the dermis. So your main 2 layers are the epidermis, and then underneath this wavy, before you get into that adipose tissue there, this is the dermis. So this is dermis, epidermis. Epi means on top of. So the reason you got 2 different blanks here, the dermis actually has 2 sub-layers. So on the practice, listen for those words or read those words that say sub-layers. So the dermis down here has 2 sub-layers. So right underneath the wavy action, and here's that little egg carton crate looking thing that I talked about, how they were wavy and they hold on to one another. So the reason this is wavy like this, if I pull it up, is for the epidermis doesn't come off the dermis. They're like interlocked with one another, and that little papillary action going on there, which is going to help you know this little area here right underneath the papillae. Let's see if I can highlight it here a little bit. So this little area right in here, kind of going down by that whoopsies, by that blood vessel. My little thing does not like me to scribble very well. We'll just kind of highlight it there. So this little area right in here. It might go slightly down below, but for the most part, that's where I would tag it. That's what it's referring to right here. You can see it going down a little bit further. That is a sublayer of the dermis. It is the one closest to the top, and so most superficial. So this is called the papillary layer because it's next to the papillae, which is the little undulations going up. Papillary layer. I should have put the word layer here. And layer here. This is technically a sublayer of the dermis. So the papillary layer, and then underneath the papillary is called a reticular layer. Reticular layer. There is a word bank up at the top there. You can see reticular layer there. And that's why it has the word dermis, papillary layer, dermis, reticular. Those are the sub-layers of the dermis layer. Okay. So you will not have a word bank on the actual practical. So these two, here and here, are the main two layers. And then this one and this one are sublayers of the dermis. Hopefully you're with me there. I'm going to get that highlighting off of there because it's going to bother me. Okay. So what I want to do now, I'll do it in red. I'm going to put a little star beside it. So those are the two layers of your skin, epidermis, dermis. The epidermis actually has 5 sublayers. You'll learn those in lecture. The dermis has 2 sublayers, which we are going to go ahead and learn these because they're easy enough. So I would like you to know what type of tissue. So what I'm going to now put in red here is the tissue type. So if I ask what type of tissue is in this layer, you would tell me. And you should actually already know this from the very first lesson we did. This is lining and outside. So it's the apical side. So this is multiple layers. So this is stratified. It is flat, so it's squamous. And it is epithelial tissue. Remember, epithelial tissue is our lining one. So if I ask for the name of the layer, you'll put epidermis layer. If I ask for the type of tissue, stratified squamous epithelial tissue. So you will be needing to read the question. All right, in the papillary layer, so we're getting to, remember, always underneath that basement membrane, which is what that craziness thing is going on. We always have some sort of connective tissue. And this is where that hot mess looking tissue is. This is where that areolar tissue is located. So under here is that areolar connective tissue, areolar connective tissue, however you would like to pronounce it. Underneath that is also still some connective tissue. So in this sublayer, we have dense, not regular like you do on your ligaments, but dense, irregular. Hold on just a second. My thing is going to spin around. I can't write while it's spinning. I'm here at the house, and so my connection's not the greatest. It doesn't really like this computer. The minute it stops swirling, I don't know if y'all can see the swirl or not, but my computer is in thinking mode. So I'm in, oh, there we go. Dense, regular, connective tissue. So the purple is the name. Actually, these purple are the sublayers. That's a layer, that's a layer. And this in red is the type of tissue. So if I ask for the type of tissue, that's what. Underneath there, this is called subcutaneous. Cutaneous is basically your skin, and your skin is made up of the epidermis and the dermis. So down below that is, and this is why it's like dotted, it's not really a layer of skin. It's called subcutaneous. under the skin. So under the skin, we find another layer that's called the hypo. Hypo means lower. And I'm going to go ahead and do that in purple as well. So hypodermis layer. That's an E. And you should know that's where we're seeing all these fat cells. And so the type of tissue that we find in the hypodermis is adipose tissue, fat. And adipose is muscle tissue, nervous tissue, connective tissue, or epithelial tissue. It's not epithelial. Epithelial has to line an opening. It is connective tissue. It's not a muscle. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me pull this down some so you can see. On this structure, can you see where this is leading? This is a big hair. And we're not going to go in over the whole parts of the hair follicle and stuff, so we're not going to break it down that far. So if I follow this right there, this is a hair follicle. And we'll just do that in black. So this is a hair follicle. So basically where your hair is embedded. Notice that, and I'm going to show you a better picture in a moment. I'll show you on the model. There's this little pulley thing that's connected to the hair molecule, and it actually looks like a bicep muscle. It is a muscle, and it will pull on that hair, and your hair will poke up. Okay, so there's this little muscle that is holding on to the hair, grabbing at the hair follicle, which is going to cause you to have goosebumps. Let's see. Oh, there's a prettier picture. While I'm on this, let's look at this picture. Do you see this little muscle here? Here's our hair follicle. It will pull that muscle and make your hair stand up. And that's why we get those goosebumps there. So cats have it. We're mammals, so we have hair. And so it's one way. Well, we get scared it happens, but if you get cold, which is cold right now, your body's trying to keep you warm. If you ever notice animals, they feel real like extra fluffy during the coldness because their little erector pili muscle has made them have the little goosebumps. We're just not very hairy, even though we're mammals. Then we do a great job of keeping ourselves warm this way. But that's what that little muscle is doing. It pulls that little hair. So this is the erector pili muscle, A-R-R-E-C-T, erector pili muscle. And then we're going to do what type of tissue you think this would be. Erector pili muscle, so it must be some sort of muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is not good enough answer, so we need to know, is it cardiac muscle? It's not connected to a heart. Okay, so is it skeletal muscle? Skeletal muscle means you can control it. It's connected to a bone. Okay, so this is connected to a hair follicle that is not a bone. So this is not skeletal muscle, and you also don't have control of it. I can't look at my arm and go, okay, goosebumps, stand up. So this, believe it or not, is a smooth muscle. Smooth muscle. And it does play part of your sympathetic nervous system. You get fight or flight, all that good stuff. So I would like you to know the muscle type there. All right, as we move along, we've got two more little things on our structure here. And so we've got these little things that are stuck on the side of our hair. And one of our hair produces oil. And so this is actually an oil gland, but I don't want you to write oil gland because I want you to know the scientific word for oil gland. So these little blob things sitting on the side of our hair, these are called sebaceous glands. See if I make sure I spell this right. Sebaceous glands, they secrete oil. In lecture, you'll talk about the different types of glands, endocrine, exocrine, and you'll look at apocrine and holocrine and all the different kinds of glands going on. I just would like you to know that that is an oil gland. And then coming down, we've got this little wormy looking thing here. Some students say it looks like a spaghetti noodle. It looks like it's running through the hair follicle. It's actually not. It's over here to the side. There's another one there. To me, it looks like if you ever went fishing, it's the worm on the end of your fishing pole there. So that is actually a sweat gland. A sweat gland. So we've got the sweat gland, the sebaceous gland, the rector pili muscle, the hair follicle, and then our layers of our skin. Look at our model. It's not the whole model, but it's got everything for us to see it. So that's good. So I'm going to label on here for we can see. And so if I were asking for the layer, this is the epidermis layer. If I ask for the type of if I ask for the type of tissue, the tissue type you would say is stratified, squamous, epithelial tissue. So you'd read the questions. I should be putting the word layer on the end of those. Okay. So if I ask for this entire layer here, this is the dermis layer. Goodness gracious. Come here, you. I was trying to hit undo and it changed pages on me. It is not like the letter M. Dermis layer. Okay, so that's the dermis layer. The sub-layers, that's what you would read. Oops, that's not where I wanted to go with that sub-layer. It's actually underneath this. Oh, goodness. I just noticed what I just did. That actually goes all the way down there. And this actually goes about right there. I have it right on your thing. So the little wave is a division. The little wave. I just didn't go underneath the wave. So I'll tag it well on the practical. Under the wave, there's dermis layer before we get to all that yellow stuff down there. All that yellow stuff, we might as well go here. This is the hypodermis. That's that. It's not a true layer, but it is subcutaneous. This is made up of adipose tissue, connective tissue in that hypodermis there. And then the two sub-layers of the dermis is the papillary. My thing is just not wanting to write. It's too cold. Which is made up of that areolar connective tissue. And then we have this sublayer here, which is called the reticular layer. Sublayer of the dermis. And it is made up of dense, irregular connective tissue. Okay, so that's all the layers, and then we have the labeling of the thing. So do you see the little wormy thing there? So this, let's see if I can go a little thicker. We can draw a bigger line. So there, this little wormy guy. There's another one right there. I should have labeled that one. So here's one. There's another one. Okay, so that is our sweat gland. I'm liking the bigger thing. And hopefully you can see this here. This is the hair follicle. You can trace it on the model. You can actually see the hair things. And this little weird thing hanging off on it, that are your oils glands, which are your sebaceous glands. And last but not least, you see this little number 20 here? That looks like a little muscle. So that is the erector pili muscle, and then that is made up of smooth muscle. I am liking that thicker stuff. All right, that's how that model looks. So you'd have to, I'll tag a different part. You'd have to, and I've got some good pictures on your little practice for you. So these are it says 5 layers. These are actually the sub layers of the epidermis. Remember the epidermis? It's that big long layer that it has that stratified squamous epithelial tissue, but it's actually got 5 sublayers, and you'll learn these in lecture, but these will be bonus. They're not all 5 bonus, but I might say layer that's the deepest, or layer that's the second most superficial. These are the 5 layers: stratum corneum, stratum luciderm, granulosum, spinosum, and basale are the 5 sublayers. So there is this little mnemonic. You can use these first letters. So careless, Lucy got sunburned, to know the order of those. So these will be bonus for the practical. So I might say name the most superficial one. You say that stratum, you have to put the word stratum. Stratum corneum, I might say the deepest. Stratum basale, I'll say that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the deepest one being number 5, the most superficial would be 1. Second most superficial would be the stratum luciderm. So you can see, so these aren't all 5 of the bonus questions. I may pick 2, 3 of them